Hey, folks, welcome to this week's edition of Thursdays with Mike. Actually, this is the last edition of Thursdays with Mike for this year. This should drop on New Year's Eve, if all goes well, and if not, well, it'll show up sometime. But anyway, I'm actually going to take a break from the Vineyard Statement of Faith. I know that's enthralled many of you, and just try to contain your disappointment somehow. I just didn't want to let the devil have the last word for 2020. Maybe that's really appropriate, actually, to let him have the last. No, it's not. No. No, I think he's like had every other word. So we're not going to yield this space to him. Paragraph 3 in the Vineyard Statement of Faith deals with the devil and demons, and it's like one of the shortest paragraphs, and it just has like 8 references as opposed to like 44 dealing with the nature of God. Anyway, yeah, but we'll save that short paragraph for later, and I don't even know if I'll deal with that next week because that gives like the devil the first word. Though when I do get to that paragraph, we'll talk about the painting in the background because my friend Jerry asked, "What is that painting back there?" And that's actually pertinent to that paragraph, so it gives you something to look forward to, because you're probably needing something to look forward to. Anyway, what I would like to do is just share a reading from my final read for 2020, which is the book Holy Envy by Barbara Brown Taylor. Just finishing it up, and I'm looking through the list because I kept a list this year of the books that I read. I'm just curious. I generally don't track it. I thought, wow, if I could read 40 books this year in the midst of all the writing that I do. I mean, there are crazy people like my darling daughter Michelle in the UK who read 100 books, and I'm thinking, what? Do you do it? Do you do anything else? I mean, if I didn't have to write so much, and I mean, this year of quarantine and so forth, yeah, I mean, makes it possible, certainly in ways that it may not have otherwise. And I actually got a lot of reading done during two stints at NIH, where essentially I was in isolation. So anyway, but I read 44 books. 44 books this year, and I'm just looking over them and having no idea at the start. We actually started 2020 in Phoenix, Arizona. That's how we spent New Year's. And I read the book during that trip, Creation and the Persistence of Chaos. What does so it's my fault. It is just my fault that 2020 happened, obviously, because that is the title that I chose to kick off 2020 with. I think I was simultaneously reading a number of things actually, but I had also dug into the brothers Karamazov, Dostoevsky. It was my first venture into his world, and wow, that was a depressing and long read. That should count for 3 books at least in itself. But anyway, yeah, Creation and Persistence of Chaos is how I started the year, along with A Reading Life, which is a compendium of comments by C.S. Lewis about reading, which was actually just really, really sweet. The Art of Translation by Robert Alter, Radical Optimism by Beatrice Boutreau. And as I recall, that was right at the beginning of the pandemic, so nice counter to Creation and the Persistence of Chaos is the Radical Optimism of Beatrice Boutreau. And then, down on through the list, there was a rereading of Tuesdays with Morrie, which is when we kicked this off. That was number 12. Gettysburg, okay, that's almost like an annual read for me, by Alan Guelzel. It reads like poetry to me. To Hell with the Hustle by Betke. What else? What else here? What If Jesus Was Serious by Jatani. Judgment Detox by Burstein. Undivided by Beeching. Romans Disarmed by Keesmaat and Walsh. Oh, and this one, Thomas Jefferson and the Tripoli Pirates. That was at NIH. Just a copy on their shelf. That was a fun little excursion. Read that one in a day. That was just so fun. not too often I can just sit and read a book all day long. And I could, because again, isolation. Um, Leadership in Turbulent Times by Doris Kearns Goodwin, which is a look at the leadership of Lincoln, Teddy Roosevelt, FDR, and LBJ. Fascinating read. I feel like history and presidents in leadership. And yeah, I guess that basically brings us. Well, then there was Biblical Fracking. That one had kind of been a 6-month read because it's just different stories, fracking the stories. Maybe think that would be a great Bible translation to have come out, the Fracking Bible. Yeah, I'm just reading the Fracking Bible. It's like Battlestar Galactica inspired version or something, but actually fracking, biblical fracking is just where you're letting water into the crevices of scriptural text and story, and seeing what is in between the lines, more or less. It's kind of like Christian midrash. It's just fascinating to see what he did with the stories. And anyway, and Holy Envy, that's been the book the last few weeks. I've been pondering. I love Barbara Brown Taylor. This one I actually bought at the Evolving Faith Conference last year, and she signed it. So I've got like this autographed version. Tried to get to it over the last year, and it just finally happened in the last month here. So this will be the concluding word then that I would give to us, as opposed to a short paragraph about the devil and demons and darkness and principalities and powers. We'll save that in the painting for later. So, all right, Barbara Brown Taylor. This, in a nutshell, she writes, is the monumental spiritual challenge of living with religious difference. And perhaps we could just expand religious to include, just amplify that, just human, political, cultural, moral, just human difference, actually. Human difference. And more centrally than that, of living with anyone who does not happen to be me. All right, yeah, there's our challenge. Okay, so here it is, in a nutshell. The monumental spiritual challenge of living with human difference, specifically of living with anyone who doesn't happen to be me. All right, here it is. Love God and the person standing right in front of you, the Jesus of my understanding says. Or forget the whole thing, because if you cannot do that, then you are just going to keep making shit up. Now, that's Barbara Brown Taylor. I didn't say that. That wasn't me. That was her. Actually, that's the Jesus of her understanding, which I kind of like, that Jesus of her understanding, because I could see him saying something that's shocking to us. Love God and the person standing right in front of you, or forget the whole thing. Because if you cannot do that, then you are just going to keep making shit up. And that, I think, when we're talking about politics, we're talking about religion, and so much of the swirling mess around us, that's it. But especially the religion aspect of it, because the bottom line is, yes, it is loving God and the person standing right in front of you. It took my husband Ed and me years, she writes, she continues. I don't have a husband named Ed. I have a wife named Luane. But anyway, it took my husband Ed and me years to make peace with that truth. I keep thinking he likes cities, but that is me, not him. He keeps thinking I like power tools, but that's him, not me. When he is hurt, he likes to be held. When I am hurt, I like to be left alone until the urge to bite someone passes. Now Ed and I operate by our first amendment to the golden rule, which is not do unto others as you would have them do unto you, but do unto others as they would have you do unto them, instead of thinking that they're just like you. Okay. I know that my Jesus mosaic is as much my own creation as my God mosaic is, but when I follow him through the Gospels, it seems like he's always pouring himself out in one direction or another, into God or into other human beings, and without taking adequate safety precautions, I might add. That's a marvelous footnote. Written pre-pandemic, but wow. I just want to read that one more time here. I know that I know that my Jesus mosaic is as much my own creation as my God mosaic is. In essence, we're responsible for this imagination, this putting together of how we see God and Jesus. We need to understand our hand in that, and that just gives us a bit of humility as we deal with each other, and hopefully curiosity about each other's mosaics and so forth as we kind of compare glass shards, I guess. And okay, but when I follow him through the Gospels, it seems like he's always pouring himself out in one direction or another into God or into other human beings, and without taking adequate safety precautions, I might add. He does not stop to think about what might happen to him if he keeps whirling between the two like that, with one hand pointing up to heaven and the other down to earth. And I love that posture, actually, whirling between the two. And I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to move to her final chapter here, because it actually just connects and then round this off for you here. This is in the context of that great story, Jesus sitting on the throne, the shepherd king, and he has all of humanity before him, and you've got the sheep and the goats being separated. The sheep on the right, goats on the left. And so it's in the discussion of that where she says, Barbara Brown Taylor writes, I asked God for religious certainty, and God gave me relationships instead. Okay, hang on. And just Selah, pause over that one. I would venture to say that if God gave us religious certainty, we'd find ourselves in relationship probably only with ourselves, I would suggest. I asked God for religious certainty, and God gave me relationships instead. I asked for solid ground, and God gave me human beings instead. Strange, funny, compelling, complicated human beings who keep puncturing my stereotypes, challenging my ideas, and upsetting my ideas about God, so that they are always under construction. I mean, forget about this. Yeah, I deconstructed a while back, and now I'm like reconstructing this. We're always under construction. We're always under construction. It just never stops. I may yet find the answer to all my questions in a church, a book, a theology, or a practice of prayer, but I hope not. I hope God is going to keep coming to me in authentically human beings who shake my foundations, freeing me to go deeper into the mystery of why we are all here. Meanwhile, it helps to remember that neither the sheep nor the goats in Matthew's parable knew which one they were. They were all on the sacred way of unknowing. The sheep were surprised to learn that they had done something right, as the goats were to learn that they had done something wrong. None of them had recognized the king in their midst. His clever disguises had fooled them all. The only thing that set them apart in the end was that half of them had made a habit of treating everyone they met with kindness and respect, even the ungrateful ones, even the ones that scared them. And that made all the difference. Okay, just one more time on that line, okay? This is a good note on which to end this year, which for many of us has been wretched and horrid and long and satanic. Good note on which to end the year and to pivot into the next, which, well, God knows. God knows what it will bring to us, but there we shall be. The only thing that set them apart in the end was that half of them had made a habit of treating everyone they met with kindness and respect, even the ungrateful ones, even the ones that scared them. And that made all the difference. So, Happy New Year, people. Thank you for joining me in these this year, and we'll see you next year on Thursdays with Mike.